most of us have been through some dark shit. 70% of Americans have experienced trauma, but somehow we're just all like, trying to laugh our pain away one meme at a time. But I don't know if we're actually doing okay. When we talk about a self-healing journey, it's often seen as this beautiful path of finding yourself. You think of bubble baths, face masks, yoga, drinking wine. But the truth is, it ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It can be very ugly. To truly heal from traumas, childhood traumas, or just really negative experiences you faced, you need to do a lot of shadow work and reflecting on your emotional wounds. And although confronting some of your most painful memories and experiences is tough, it really is something you grow so much from, because, growth happens outside your comfort zone, right? You truly learn and understand yourself, like what makes you tick, and you enter a relationship so much more clearly. You know who you are, what you want, and I honestly think the self-healing journey is the best gift you can give yourself. So today I'm going to talk about the self-healing journey and the parts that aren't that pretty, the parts that are often not talked about. I'll break down each stage of the healing journey, what I personally went through, how it impacts your relationships, and I'll give you guys question prompts you can ask yourself and journal about as you also go through a self-healing journey. Also, this is the first video in a series I'm doing called Growing Pains. This video is about mental health, and the next one is the tough side when you embark on a financial health journey, and the last video of the series will be the tough side, or things I wish I knew, going into my physical fitness journey. So definitely subscribe and be part of the family if you're just that person that's interested in leveling up all of those areas of your life, your bank account, your mind, and your body. Quick disclosure for today's video, I am not a therapist, psychologist, I'm just someone who has been on a self-healing journey. Also a heads up, we're gonna be talking about things like trauma, so only continue if you're okay with that. And let's get into it. Trauma is a lasting emotional and physical response that originates from living through a distressing event or a certain circumstance in your life that overwhelms your body and your mind beyond its ability to cope. Some really common traumas are abuse, abandonment, neglect, loss of a loved one, natural disasters, accidents, and injury. And it totally changes you. It is the lens that we see ourselves and the world from. Going through this journey is one of the most important things you can do in life, because at the end of the day, you're the only person you're stuck with for the rest of your life. So it's like dating yourself. You have to intentionally get to know yourself deeply. Doing this is part of the first stage called awareness. When you dig deep and really ask yourself why you are the way you are, what makes you sad and why, what's your attachment style and why, what's your love language and why, what triggers you. Those answers are often rooted in trauma, specifically childhood trauma, and can be really dark and triggering and scary and uncomfortable to face. And a lot of people go through their entire life just distracting themselves from this. Either they're in total denial, or they really throw themselves into parties or relationships or friendships, or they become workaholics, or they just shove it down so far that they pretend it doesn't exist. But this awareness stage, some people call it the spiritual awakening stage, it's really about confronting that discomfort. When you finally address the most painful memories you have, this often leads to a lot of realizations about yourself and other people. For me, I literally felt like I had rebirthed into this new version of me. And I had like a full-on identity crisis because I realized that I wasn't who I thought I was. I realized that a lot of the things that I loved about myself actually came from bad places and was actually a trauma response. For example, I've always loved that I'm very disciplined, that I enjoy working hard, but I realized that that actually came from a need to overachieve and be perfect because I actually didn't feel good enough without those successes and accolades, because as a child growing up, I felt my worth and my value was contingent on good grades and success. Another example is I always felt I was a very loving person who went above and beyond for the people around me. But in therapy, I realized that I was actually just really used to people pleasing as a trauma response. I grew up in an unstable environment, so it was rooted in me early to, please everyone and make sure everyone was doing okay and keep the peace. And these types of awakenings really shook me to my core. It literally felt like someone telling me that the sky actually is not blue and that 2 + 2 actually is not 4. And all of these realizations and memories that flooded back in really brought up some strong emotions of anger, sadness, resentment. And this awareness stage really impacted my social life too. It caused me to really shut down because I felt very vulnerable and like naked almost. And I just felt like I needed to be alone to really process this without the influence of other people. It took a lot of explaining for people to understand what I was going through because I looked like a zombie. I had a depressive episode. The way that I was acting, people had thought someone died, and I was like, low-key, yeah, like low-key me, I died. It literally felt like I was shedding this old version of me and rebirthing into someone new. This stage was really lonely for me because no one can truly relate to what you've been through, only you have been through it, and most people don't even take this healing journey at all, so a lot of my friends just didn't get it. But I really believe there's so much power in solitude and just isolating yourself and healing in private, and spending that much time alone with yourself is really beautiful. And here are some questions you can ask yourself as you enter your awareness phase. What are your earliest childhood experiences or events that are the most vivid to you? What are the things that you try to block out or thoughts you just push down? Or what about that strange relationship you have with that family member or friend? What is the root of that? What is the trigger for you? Also, what are the stories you are telling yourself? What's that inner narrative that's rooted in trauma? That you're not enough, that you're not deserving of love, that things are your fault. And I know you're probably thinking like, damn, that was a lot. But yeah, that's what this stage is about, is uncovering those pressure points. And once you acknowledge what you've went through, you now have to accept it. Because you can acknowledge that you were abandoned, for example, but also pretend like it doesn't bother you, it never affected you. Just because it happened a long time ago or you're not crying about it right now doesn't mean the pain is gone. This quote I really like says, "The process of healing does not end when the wounds are no longer visible. It ends when the wounds no longer ache." So this understanding and acceptance phase is what most people call shadow work. During my shadow work, I realized that I guess I didn't want to believe that people had actually let me down as a child. I didn't want to believe that I actually came from a messy, broken home, so I just pretended that my childhood didn't bother me. My acceptance stage meant fully internalizing my past and really sitting with those feelings. That people had let me down, that the love I felt very unstable and conditional. There was real sadness and anger towards myself and other people. It can be very jarring to take off those rose-colored glasses and fully feel your emotions, but if you don't feel it, you can't heal it. And this stage of accepting my feelings really changed my interactions with everyone. I realized that I had certain family members and friends that I felt cool with, but when I dug deeper, I realized that there were actually a lot of complications and mixed feelings I had towards them that I never brought up because I had just been burying them all of my life. And we're gonna get more into that in the next section, but for now, here are some questions you can ask yourself during your acceptance stage. The traumas you experienced, what are your real emotions with them? And if your first natural response is apathy and that you feel indifferent and that you don't feel like it actually affects you, I would implore you to just maybe take a second look, because apathy is often really just avoidance wearing cool sunglasses. So when you're fully embracing your body's reactions and your feelings from a past traumatic event, it often brings up negative emotions towards the people that were involved in your trauma. Some people are really upset at their parents for toxic ways they were raised. Some people are really upset at the world for being unfair after they lost a loved one. Some people are really angry towards the people that bullied them or abused them. But here's the thing, holding on to the anger and the stress and the frustration at the people who hurt you, it doesn't hurt them, it actually just hurts you. Those people might not even care that you resent them. Oftentimes you feel like it's justified, right? That's what holding a grudge is. You want the person to feel bad the way you feel bad. But that's almost never what happens. You are the one that's literally holding on to the pain and the suffering. Holding on to anger is really just like harboring hatred and animosity, and it totally consumes your energy. There's this quote I like that says, "Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intention of throwing it at someone, but in the end, you're the only one who's getting burned." Also, that stress and negativity can be really detrimental to your health. One study found that adults who held on to hostility towards other people actually experienced cognitive decline over the course of a decade than people who forgave more easily. Also, like holding on to that much stress, that's not good for your skin. And call me selfish, but I'm not about to have bad skin over your crusty ass. So I had to learn how to have compassion for those that hurt me and ultimately forgive them. I had to give myself the closure I needed. You can't sit around and wait for the people who hurt you to do that, because sometimes they're not around, sometimes they've passed away, sometimes they're never gonna reach an emotional intelligence enough to give that to you. You'll never get the apology from them. I think a lot of people in older generations, especially like the baby boomers, they have this mentality of, you were never hurt, you need to suck it up, you don't need therapy, you need to stop being a baby. For me, compassion was actually like understanding that and understanding generational trauma. Understanding that their mentality towards mental health and love came from their parents and their parents. I had to really step into the shoes of the people that hurt me and realize that maybe they couldn't, give me what I needed as a child, the type of love that I needed, because they never received it. Maybe they couldn't understand my emotions the way I needed them to because they were never taught how to deal with emotions. In a lot of ways, now I see it as like a language. Having the skills to understand your emotions, to love properly and in a healthy way, it's like complex, like speaking French or something. And I can't be angry at someone for not knowing how to speak French if they never learned it. And in no way is having compassion or forgiving them an excuse for their behavior. It's just letting go of the anger so it doesn't control you. Forgiveness is about putting down that burning coal. So give yourself the gift of peace and forgive the people that hurt you, and most importantly, get your closure. And here are some questions you can ask yourself during this phase. What does closure feel like for you? What did your younger self need, and what would you tell them? Is it that they are loved? Is it that they didn't deserve what happened? Is it that it's not their fault? Is it that they're valuable? And on the forgiveness side, if you're not sure if you've forgiven someone yet, there's this forgiveness quiz from Berkeley University that I'll link down below. And forgiveness and closure is so essential to moving forward because you don't want to stay a bitter person. As you're healing, what are the changes you want to make? What is the kind of person you want to transform into? I like this quote that says, "It has been said that time heals all wounds. But the truth is that time does not heal anything. It merely passes. It is what we do during the passing of time that helps or hinders the healing process." So you have to decide how you want those negative experiences to shape you. Whether your trauma happened 10 days ago or 10 years ago, you can still make that choice. This is about changing the narratives you've been telling yourself. This is about rewriting your limiting beliefs. This is about setting new boundaries. A lot of people call this stage the reparenting stage. And this transformation looks different for everyone. When it comes to the relationships with the people involved in our trauma, for some people it might mean confronting them and trying to build a bridge, and for others it might mean realizing the most healthy thing to do is just cutting them off entirely. And even beyond the people who were directly involved in your trauma, your relationship with just everyone can really change, because you're in this new elevated version of yourself, and that's going to inherently change how you interact with people, and a lot of people feel uncomfortable with this different dynamic. It might look like distancing yourself from some people, not oversharing as much, not apologizing for things you don't need to apologize for. Maybe it's taking up more space and standing up for yourself. In my experience, that shift was just really prioritizing myself. I stopped people pleasing, I set more boundaries, I took up more space, and I stopped overextending myself and bending over backwards to serve people and keep everyone happy. And I think after years of putting others before myself, finally prioritizing myself made people uncomfortable. When you're 100% accessible to people and bending over backwards to please them all the time, I think there's a natural entitlement that develops over time. The people who benefited the most from me being a people pleaser and putting them first really missed the old version of me and said that they liked her better. And I was like, yeah, I'm sorry, she's dead. People are going to be confused about this new version of you, and while you don't want people you love and care about to feel neglected or that you just pulled a rug from underneath them, you can explain yourself, but if they don't understand or if they're not willing to accept that this is a new stage of growth in your life, then maybe they're not for you. And here are some questions you can ask yourself during your transformation stage. How are you going to change those unhealthy trauma responses and coping mechanisms like people pleasing? How are we going to change those toxic narratives in your head? If your narrative is that you're not enough or that things are your fault, what is the new narrative and how are you going to go about setting on that new mindset? With regards to your current relationships, what are the new boundaries you are setting? What kind of people do you want to surround yourself with? Y'all, that was dark and heavy. I'm still figuring all of this stuff out. It's not like I'm just totally healed and on the other side. So this is some stuff that I think you can think about to be proud of while you're on this heavy journey. Find strength in knowing that you're giving yourself so much self-growth and that you're embarking on a journey most people never even touch. Be proud of yourself that you're literally breaking generational traumas that have spanned decades or even centuries, and you are the one that's going to be stopping it and making sure that you don't pass on hurt onto your children or your future relationships. Hurt people, and you're ending the cycle of hurt. So when you're going through your self-healing journey, journal, meditate, go to therapy if you can. Just be gentle with yourself because you've gone through a lot and you're finally honoring your inner child and giving them what they've needed for so long. And it's likely you've deprived that inner child for a while, so spend some time with them. If this video helped you at all, please hit the like button. It really supports my channel, and if you feel comfortable, I'd love to hear your experience with all of this down below. And don't forget, this video is part of a series called Growing Pains, so definitely subscribe if you're interested in hearing about my journey through different areas of my life, like my financial journey and my fitness journey. I promise those videos won't be as heavy as this one, and I will see you guys there. Bye.
Coming back home. Know that you're coming back home.